Welcome to another episode of Let's Talk About Clutter. I'm your host, Margo, a professional organizer specializing in toxic clutter. And today we will be talking about how to finally overcome the clutter in our homes. We oftentimes don't realize that decluttering our homes and achieving a clean and tidy space starts with changing our mindset first. So today we're going to link all of that clutter and our struggles to some more psychological factors that are in play, starting with what caused us to have so much clutter to begin with. Clutter, as well as decluttering, is all about mindset. Our home should be a source of peace and relaxation, not stress and anxiety, which is typically the case when our homes are messy. In my experience, in order to fully achieve a clean and tidy space, we first have to identify where our clutter starts from. So, what are some of the reasons that we have clutter? A large contributor to this is actually our upbringing. So your relationship with clutter, or rather the example of what a home should look like, originated while you were growing up. So think about, what did your caretakers, your parents, right? What did your home look like while you were young? Did, you have a lot of stuff in your home? What was it meticulously organized, right? Oftentimes, what we learn as children, we take with us into adulthood. So maybe you're somebody who grew up in a messy home and that's all you know. And you weren't taught the habits and the skills of, decluttering and cleaning and tidying up every single day. So how can you be expected, without sort of having this awareness, to achieve a clutter-free space today? Some of us have an emotional attachment to items, and this tends to be more of the sentimentalist mentality, or rather the sentimentalist personality. And this is where we over exaggerate our attachment and our value to too many items in the home. And there's absolutely nothing wrong with having sentimental value. There is absolutely nothing wrong with holding on to and cherishing items that you love. You put them comfortably away in a memory box and you retrieve them when you want to. Hold on to items that have sentimental value. It really becomes a problem and becomes detrimental to both our mental health and our physical health when we're assigning sentimental and emotional value and emotional investment to pretty much most of the items in our home. Because how can we expect you to be able to let go of these precious items? Another reason that we accrue a lot of clutter, and as I'm going through these, maybe think about yourself, which category might you fit into? So another reason is the just in case mentality, or just in case mindset. Maybe you're somebody who is, expecting chaos around the corner, or a zombie apocalypse to happen, and you need all of these things. Or what if this item breaks and then the next item breaks? And of course I have to hold on to, 5 or 6 or 7 pairs of scissors. But you're always expecting to have to need this item in the future, and that prevents you from being able to let it go. I remember I was working with one family and I was helping her declutter in her living room, and we found this loose wire. And I'm like, okay, well, do you know what this item belongs to? And she's like, oh, absolutely not. I'm like, well, have you used it in a while? She's like, no, I didn't even know I had it. I was like, okay, so, do you feel like this is an easy let go or trash? And she's like, absolutely not. And I was like, well, why not? And she's like, well, because I might need it. I'm like, but you haven't needed it in 5 years. You don't even know what it belongs to, right? So having this just in case kind of mindset and just in case mentality, we really want to have an awareness of what is the probability of this emergency actually happening. So when you encounter an item and you think to yourself, I might need it someday, I urge you to challenge that mindset and keep it real. Like, what are the chances of you actually needing it? Or is it worth letting it go? And, on the 0.01 chance that you might need it 5 years later, can you go out and buy another one and do so relatively quickly? Another psychological component is, those of us who are perfectionist, right? Perfectionism tends to be a personality trait. So maybe you are somebody that looks around your home and you have a lot of clutter, and maybe you're not well versed in home organization, and you think to yourself, what's the point? If I can't do it right, I shouldn't do it at all. And I just want to really quickly break that myth. There is no such thing as perfect organization or perfect decluttering or that perfect clutter-free home. Clutter-free is subjective. The way you organize your home does not have to be fancy, right? We don't all have magazine worthy, Pinterest worthy, like Instagram, these like perfectly, beautiful homes. And that is totally fine. Home organization is so subjective, and you can get away with like boxes and bins and things that you have around the home. The most important thing when it comes to decluttering and organizing things in your environment is that they work for you and your family. So there is no such thing as perfection. And I find that in my experience, what helps you to overcome that perfection-like mindset is to actually just start rolling up your sleeves and doing it, right? And it's kind of eliminating those expectations and challenging the expectations of perfectionism, because it does not in any way, shape, or form exist. Another reason sometimes we accrue a lot of clutter is maybe we have a shopping addiction. So maybe there's a lot of impulse buying going on. Maybe we're not creating shopping lists. Maybe we are somebody who is tempted by sales. And oftentimes we don't realize. And, today it's just so easy to kind of go on Amazon and click add to cart and, check out, that sometimes we don't even have an awareness of just how many things we're bringing into our home. So challenging that mindset, and more so becoming more intentional about your shopping habits, creating the list. Lists are fantastic. I have a rule. If it's not on the list, I don't buy it. Right. And there are times throughout the month maybe I'm having a crappy day, and, looking at pretty things and buying things can make me feel happy. Right. It's like a short-term adrenaline rush. And then the guilt sets in of like wasting money on an item that you didn't actually need. I don't know if you've experienced this, let me know. But creating a shopping list, sticking to your shopping list, staying away from like 50% off, 20% off, right? Kind of valuing the environment that you have, and also your pocket, right? And your wallet. Because a lot of times, leading sort of into the other reason why we continue to hold on to a lot of clutter is because we have a lot of guilt letting go some of the items. And one of the biggest reasons that I hear is, you're wasting money. It's you purchase this item, you spend money on it, and now, you have to either donate or trash it, or, maybe you're somebody who sells items, but you'll never get back exactly what you paid for it. So, maybe you're somebody who feels wasteful. But a great way to challenge this is like, the money has already been spent. You can't get it back. And I know that sucks. But at the same time, what is it costing you to hold on to this item? What is it costing you psychologically, physically, right? Because as we're holding on to all of these items that we don't need, that don't serve a purpose, that don't make us happy, we're still required to take care of them, right? You have to clean, dust, fix them, right? They require your time, your maintenance, and also the psychological impact of just like looking at that blender that you bought. And like, mind you never blend anything. And it's this huge bulky item that's taking up a ton of counter space or cabinet space, right? And maybe it costs like $90. But you're being reminded every single day of the money that you wasted. Like an inanimate object is actually making you feel crappier, right? So if we kind of change our perspective and sort of admit the fact that, look, we already spent money on this item. And, one of my favorite lines is like, moving forward, right? Next, it's already done. We can't reverse the time. We can't unspend the money. So if this is an item that's no longer serving you, that's requiring a lot of your time and your energy, and is giving you stress and anxiety, it's worth it for you to let it go. And I promise you that in a week or 2 weeks or 3 weeks, or maybe tomorrow, you're going to forget all about the item. Sometimes if we're somebody who has experienced trauma, then clutter, or rather material things, are almost like a barrier of protection. we surround ourselves with all of these things, and they make us feel safe. They make us feel comforted, right? So maybe that's the reason that you're holding on to things. Another reason is, folks who suffer from ADHD, where it's incredibly difficult to kind of commit and declutter areas of our home. So maybe you're somebody that wants to, but maybe you're somebody who might get distracted. And with ADHD specifically, it's good to tackle small projects in as few minutes as possible. So put 5 minutes on a timer and go through like a shelf or a section of a drawer, kind of keeping things incredibly bite-sized and staying away from sort of these marathons of like 30 minutes, an hour, and 2 hours, right? Even maybe having a list, like a to-do list of small sections or sectors of your home that you're going to be decluttering can also help. There are a ton of other reasons as well. One of them is actually procrastination, and I'm going to talk about that in a bit more length in a little bit. But, there's also the guilt of somebody gave you something and you feel guilty getting rid of it. Like you'd never wanted it, you don't use it, but you feel bad because somebody gave it to you. So, you really want to zero in and ask yourself, think about, what is your relationship with clutter? And it's really kind of getting insight into why you have accrued so much clutter to begin with. Once you realize what that reason is, then you can kind of tailor approaches that work for you in helping you declutter. I can tell you that regardless of what your personality type is, regardless of what your mindset is about clutter, decluttering, and more so maintaining a clean and tidy home, is all about building habits and skills. I also want to remind you that many studies have been done that, our environments are directly linked to our happiness. So if you surround yourself with, if you create an environment of peace and relaxation, if your home, exudes a comfort, maybe it's like that cozy nook area. And by the way, I'm not talking about being a minimalist, right? That's not what I mean. I mean, when you walk into your home, how do you feel? How does your home make you feel? Are you eager to come home? Are you comforted and happy sitting on your couch and watching TV? Or is it the complete opposite, where you're stressed and you're overwhelmed and your home reminds you of all the different things that you have to do and that you have to clean and how much time you're investing in it? And maybe you feel like you're overwhelmed and you're overstimulated by all of the things in your space, and you can't focus and you can't concentrate, right? If that's your experience in your home, then absolutely we need to declutter. But decluttering is incredibly subjective, and I can't say that enough. And it's keep what you need and what you love and get rid of the rest. Something I encounter quite frequently is clutter blindness. So, I will have clients tell me that, oh, okay, well, this area of my home is not really cluttered. So this is not an area that we're going to target. And I was like, okay, cool. I mean, listen, it's entirely up to the client and up to you. What I encourage my clients and I encourage you to do is to take photos of your home. So because we live in our homes day in and day out, we experience something called clutter blindness. So you're not actually realizing just how much clutter you have. So in order to get a better perspective on your space, walk around your home and take pictures, and then take a few minutes to review your photographs. I promise you, some of those areas where you're like, oh, this is not cluttered, when you see it in a picture, you're going to be like, oh, a little too many trinkets on that shelf. So taking photos of your home gives you a really helpful perspective on what areas of your space you will be decluttering. And a lot of times you'll be like, that makes sense. I tend to be a little overwhelmed in this space of my home, but I didn't even realize why. So give it a try. Let me know how that goes. There are two main roadblocks to decluttering and achieving a clean and tidy home. And the two main roadblocks tend to be time and procrastinations. We are incredibly busy. There are only so many hours in a day, especially if you're a mama. I mean, it's work and it's dropping the kids off to school and it's meal planning and it's doing homework with them and it's still, giving attention to your partner or your pets and your home. I mean, there's so many buckets of things that we have to do throughout the day that decluttering tends to fall very, very low on the to-do list. What I find really funny is that there's this myth around, if I don't invest hours into decluttering, what's the point? That is so completely not true. We can declutter our homes in 60-second increments. You can begin decluttering your home by starting with eliminating just one item a day. We can declutter our homes in like 15-minute increments, 30-minute increments. We can declutter our homes, multitasking. So one of the ways that I sometimes will declutter cabinets in my kitchen is, for example, if I'm making a meal. So I'm waiting for my pasta to boil and I'm not going to take up a huge undertaking project, right? But I'll pop open a drawer with my silverware and maybe I'll go through it. Is there something extra? Did something bent or break? Do we need it? Again, it's these tiny little things that actually accrue and amount to big results. And I understand how it can be incredibly overwhelming when you take in your entire space. And especially if you're somebody that has a lot of clutter in all areas of your home and you look around and you're like, oh, there's no way in hell. This is going to take years, right? Forget hours. This is going to take years to declutter. So I'm not even going to do it. So that causes you, by the way, to procrastinate because it's kind of what's the point? But sprints go a long way. 60 seconds, one item a day, two items a day, whatever you can spare, whatever you can do is always better than doing nothing. Because if you continue to do nothing and if we continue to procrastinate, what is your home going to look like a year from now or 2 years from now or 3 years from now? More items will naturally make their way into your home. So you will be accruing so much more stuff. They did a study where the average home has over 300,000 items. That is insane. And of course, we know we have to declutter. We know we have to purge. We know we have to toss and get rid of things. But oftentimes decluttering and organizing is perceived as not fun, hard, right? Never ending. And it's just all of these negative things that are associated with decluttering. But what a lot of folks don't realize is that the most important thing that you can do is to start. And I promise you, I have seen this again and again and again. And you can actually see this too. You could join my free Facebook group. It's called Declutter Your Life, where we share tips and tricks and we support each other and we're accountability partners for each other. And what you're going to notice is that we have women join the group and they're like, I just can't do this. I don't even know where to start. And then the momentum picks up and then we'll do a challenge and they'll maybe declutter a drawer. And all of a sudden from one drawer, it's the second drawer and the third and the fourth and the fifth. And now they're decluttering whole rooms, or right now in our group, we're decluttering garages. So it is contagious. Motivation is built from taking action. So if you are somebody, personality type, who tends to procrastinate, set an alarm and just start. Make it small. Validate the fact that it is not scary. It is so much easier than we think it's going to be. And once we start seeing progress and that excitement, that momentum comes in, we are motivated to continue, keep going. Here are 5 things that I find really define whether or not somebody's going to achieve a clean and tidy home. And the first one is confidence. So it has to do with your self-esteem, or rather self-efficacy. It has to do with your belief in yourself about being able to declutter successfully and organize successfully. The more confidence you have in your abilities, the more likely you are to achieve a clean and tidy home. And confidence is built. Confidence is built from maybe learning from others. You're listening to this podcast, or maybe you watch YouTube videos or you read books. The more confidence you have, the more likely you are to succeed. And it's interesting because a lot of times we feel like, well, I can't do this. I've never done this. I don't know how. I don't know where to start. I wasn't taught these skills and these habits and all of that stuff. But I want to kind of draw your attention to maybe other areas of your life. So maybe, you started a new job and in your mind you were like, oh, I don't know how to do this. How am I going to make this work? But with practice and time, you learned how to do it. You mastered a skill. There are hundreds of different examples in our lives where we didn't know how to do something and we did it anyways. And I assure you that decluttering is no different. The next thing is having support. Having support while you're on your decluttering journey could be your partner, your kids, it could be your friends. Maybe you and your girlfriend are decluttering your homes together. You can have support through a Facebook group. folks who tend to have accountability partners or support, it helps so much. And this is really something we offer in our Facebook group because there's so much value in it. When you have a group of women or even just one, a partner, and you're on this journey together, you can support and motivate each other on days where you just don't feel like it. You can support and motivate each other and remind each other why you're doing this in the first place. You can share your befores and after. You can have fun. You can declutter while you're on the phone together. I mean, there's so many benefits in every aspect of our lives when we have an accountability partner or support system. Another thing that really works is affirmations. So having affirmations where it's like, you can declutter, you will, you're good at this, right? Hyping yourself up, right? By reading affirmations and setting the intention for each and every day will really help motivate you on this journey. The other thing is to be in the mood. I actually don't promote decluttering like every single day because the reality is that there are going to be days where we don't want to do it. And there are going to be days where we want to declutter more than other days. And I think having that flexibility and not setting these very strict these like strict guidelines of what you should do. Like every Thursday, I will declutter for 60 minutes. Well, what happens if on Thursday you have a headache or you had a fight with your partner or your kids are driving you crazy or your boss was a nightmare and like you just don't feel like it? And by setting these very, very strict expectations, the guilt sets in. Then you're assigning this negative association to decluttering. And it's not that decluttering sucks. It's just that you weren't in the mood that day. So I want you to all be mindful that you want to be in the mood. And remember, sometimes you could set up the mood, right? So I have friends who will, have like a playlist that they go to with hype music and you put on the music. For me, it's 80s classic rock. I love it. And when I'm having a crappy day or I'm not in the mood and I want to put myself in the mood, right? I will turn on 80s classic rock or sometimes I will turn on salsa. And that is something that puts me in a good headspace. So find that thing for you. And then finally, and probably the most important, is to take action. A lot of us kind of sponge but not do, especially if you're a perfectionist. Chances are you're sponging a lot. So you're learning, you're reading, you're watching, you're listening, like all of these tips and tricks. And thank you for the support. I appreciate it. Action trumps everything. Rolling up our sleeves and taking action overcomes those feelings of dread and the unreasonable expectations and the overwhelm. Like, you have to take action, and it could be a very small action that's literally starting by tossing one extra coffee mug in your cupboard. So take action. And then finally, it's really to help you kind of overcome clutter in your home, to help you overcome that procrastination or those feelings of perfectionism and the frustration of finally achieving and clean and tidy space. It's to really have realistic expectations for your home. I think that too often, like I mentioned earlier, we have this idealistic version of what a home should look like. And again, it's picture perfect, but that's not what real people's homes look like. If you have pets, if you have kids, if you have partners who are contributing to the clutter, your home is not going to look perfectly clean, minimalistic, clutter-free, unless literally your entire family moves out of that space. So unless you're planning to vacate the house, we need to have realistic expectation for what is clutter-free. We also need to stop listening to other people and what their perspective on clutter is. And, I did a podcast before about 5 areas of my home. I think it's the previous episode. 5 areas of my home that I don't declutter. And it's I am not by any means a minimalist. I like things. I have stuff, but all of the items in my home are things that I use, that I love, that make me happy. And I too continue to declutter all the time because, again, we as human beings accrue stuff. So have realistic expectations for what it means for you and your family to have a clean and tidy home, and strive towards that, not other people's stuff, towards that. I have a lot of people tell me oh, you have pictures on your refrigerator. That looks really cluttersome. And I'm okay, that's cool. It looks cluttersome to you. It is not cluttersome to me. It makes me happy. Or some people are having a lot of books is clutter. And I'm I have hundreds of books that are meticulously organized on my floor to ceiling bookshelves. And they are a source of pride for me. I read a book every single week. They make me happy. So again, don't allow anybody to dictate what your clutter-free, clean, and tidy home should look like. Be happy and peaceful in your own space. And the next big takeaway is to declutter regularly. Too many times we think that we're going to do this massive declutter, right? Or we're going to declutter over a span of a year or 2 years or 3 years. Yes. And by the way, it can take an average of 1 to 3 years to declutter your home, depending on how much time you have to invest in the process. But decluttering is a regular thing because you can declutter once, but you're going to still continue to accrue clutter. So unless you have habits and systems in place to keep the clutter right at a minimum, and it could be the 1 in 1 out rule, it could be, shifting your mindset to understanding that more should actually leave your home than come in. And then it's really just about decluttering regularly. Like my daughter has a paper bin. She brings home a lot of stuff, a lot of paperwork from school, and she has a bin where she puts all her stuff. We will declutter it once a month or, as soon as it gets full. Same thing with clothing. We will declutter seasonally. I have a 9-year-old, she grows out of items still. So it's having these system in place where we're constantly decluttering. And then decluttering doesn't take an hour or 2 hours, right? It just takes 5 minutes. Like you can go into your medicine cabinet and you can declutter in a couple of minutes, right? But it requires that we are decluttering regularly, just like you would clean your home. You add decluttering as part of your to-do list. And if you're just starting out, right, if you just had this epiphany that you are ready and you are committed to achieving a clean and tidy home, I want to encourage you to give yourself grace and understand that this will take time. And there are going to be times where you feel like doing it. There are going to be times where you don't feel like doing it. But as long as you're committed and as long as you have a strong why for why you want to achieve a clean and tidy space and how having peace in your home will benefit you and your family, as long as that's at the forefront of sort of your mindset, then you are going to be successful. Thank you so much for listening. As always, good luck on your decluttering journey, and remember to be good to yourselves.